Hello, I'm Nicola from Hats, Hands Across the Sea Samplers, and this is just a very short video where I share a few tips and tricks with you. When we're starting a new project, we're normally so keen to get going that there's a danger of not carrying out proper preparation. There's nothing worse than when we're well into a project that we realise that we're going to run out of fabric. This can happen for a few different reasons. It's easy to miscalculate the size of linen that you need for a project. On our website, we have a calculator that will help you work out the correct size. If you go to handsacrosstheseasamplers.com and click on Sewing Basket and Tools, a drop-down menu will appear and you need to click on Cross Stitch Calculator. We now need to input various pieces of information for the calculator to work out the fabric size. We have to input the stitch count both for the width and the height of the design. Next, we have to add the thread count for our fabric. For this example, I have chosen 36 count fabric. The calculator needs to know if the stitch count is over 2 threads of linen or 1. For this example, I have chosen that we are stitching this project over 2 threads. We need to make an allowance for our margins, both for the border and for finishing. At Hands Across the Sea Samplers, we recommend that you leave approximately 3 inches in total. So for this example, I have input that we need 1 inch for our border and 2 inches for lacing and stretching. The allowance for margins is very much a personal preference. You may like to leave more or less. The cross-stitch calculator will now automatically work out both the design area and the fabric size required for this project. This is a very useful tool and you may like to bookmark the site for future reference. Once we have the correct size of linen, we have to make sure that that piece of linen has been cut evenly. It's very important to do this. It's surprising how many times a piece of linen is not evenly cut. To do that, we have to check each side. So you go to the end of the side and you take the first linen thread, and then we're going to pull that linen thread, and this needs to run the whole length. Now, that one didn't. So this piece of linen is not evenly cut. So what I need to do now is take the next linen thread and I need to pull this one out. Again, that one hasn't gone the whole length. Let's take another one. Yes, that was the whole length. So I know now that this side of linen is even. So if I start stitching here, I'm going to end up the same distance when I reach the other end. You can see the amount of linen I've lost there, evening that up. Do that for all sides. The other little tip is before you start working, it's well worth hemming the edges of your linen so that it doesn't fray. You could do this with a zigzag stitch on a sewing machine, or you could hand stitch it by just turning over your linen and just basting it down. If you miscalculate your starting position, you will run out of linen. This is a very important measurement to double check and even to triple check. If you've allowed, say, for example, a 3-inch margin on your project and you like to start in a corner, you should count 3 inches in and 3 inches down. That will give you a corner starting point. If you like to start in the middle of your project, you should take your linen, fold it in half, and then fold it in half again, making sure your corners all meet up. You will then be able to ascertain the centre point of your fabric, and if you take a pin and pop it into your linen, this will give you the centre of your linen. You then need to refer to your chart and find the centre starting point on the graph. Most charts will indicate this. On Pat's charts, you will find a little black arrowhead on the horizontal and on the vertical line. Where these two merge will be your starting point. I hope you found these little tips useful. They are only simple ones, but they are worthwhile putting into practice. In our videos, we normally have a sampler on the easel. Sometimes that's an antique sampler and sometimes it's a model. If we don't talk about the sampler, I always get an email asking me for details. So I thought on today's video, I would just tag on a little section at the end where we talk about the sampler. This is the model for Jane Vaughn. She's a tall girl. If I stand up, you'll see that she's waist height on me. I'm very fond of Jane, and I am so blessed to have not only the antique sampler but the model in my home. The model hangs very close to my sewing chair and the antique hangs in my study. If I'm not walking, you're more than likely to find me either in the study or my sewing chair. So Jane and I, in one form or other, get to spend a lot of time with each other. If you'd like to find out more information about Jane, you can visit her webpage and you will be able to see some photographs, although I do believe photographs never ever do justice to samplers. You really do need to see them in the flesh. But that's Jane. Enjoy her. Bye bye.